welcome to the Chrissy B Show. What do you consider to be the most difficult job in the world? Is it being a soldier, a nurse, a politician perhaps? Well, I think many people would agree that being a parent tops the lot. Now, there does seem to be quite a bit of help and advice for the mums out there, but what about daddy, especially stay-at-home dads? We've titled today's show Mr. Mummy, and there will be lots of tips for the fathers who are brave enough to bring up the kiddies and stay at home. My guests tonight are Neil Sinclair, author of the Commando Dad, Tim Atkinson, a full-time stay-at-home dad and author, and Robert Ashitay, who is still trying to get used to juggling work and being a father, so he'll be getting some advice on the show as well. And if you want to get in touch at any point during the show to share your views, you can tweet Chrissy B Show or Facebook The Chrissy B Show. You can also call 020-7686-6300 if you want more information. You can also visit chrissybshow.tv. So let's just take a look at this video first to introduce our first guest. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, where we're speaking about stay-at-home dads and the challenges that they face. Let's look at this next video now to introduce our next guest, Tim Atkinson.
Bringing up Charlie, a full-time job and an award-winning blog. Tim has been sharing his experiences of being a stay-at-home dad for the past 2 years.
There's a good boy. Do you want me to get you a tomato as well?
And his favourite food is roasted fox and old fox potatoes on the ground.
Charlie's mum has been at work while Tim has been writing and winning 2 awards for his observations on the challenges and triumphs of full-time fatherhood.
So Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Oh, another stay-at-home dad. So how did that come about and what were you doing before that?
I was a teacher and I'd been a teacher for, longer than I care to remember really, but I'd gone into teaching because I liked the work in the classroom. I enjoyed the interaction with the children and I'd done a few jobs before on a temporary basis, and I knew that an office job wasn't sort of the kind of thing I was going to spend my life doing until I retired. But unfortunately, it's like most things, if you're good at something, you get promoted, and in my case, I got promoted out of the job that I enjoyed into an office where 60% of my time, I was dealing with a stack of government paperwork. So at about the time that Charlie was born, my wife had also got promotion. She's a teacher and was very keen to go back full time. I was at the stage where I was at a bit of a career plateau, and if I hadn't taken a step back and become a stay-at-home dad, I would have looked for a career change at that point in my life in any case. So it just happened to sort of mesh together very well.
Weren't you a bit like, oh, what will people think? A male staying at home looking after kiddies. What did you think of that?
Yeah, well, I kind of was and I wasn't. I had a bit of experience with my daughter Sally, who's 14, but obviously there was a bit of an age difference there. So, but I knew some of the kind of childhood rituals and some of the. I'd been a bit of a hands-on dad, and I tried to get as involved as I possibly could, without having the benefit of Neil's manual, of course, but it had been something that I enjoyed, and I was actually looking forward to the chance to do it full time and not to miss out on some of those sort of early infancy milestones. Sally had a great start at the nursery she went to. We both got on with our careers at the same time, and by the time she was ready for school, she was socialised and integrated very well. So I don't regret that in any way, but by the same token, she celebrated her birthdays in the nursery with the nursery staff, blowing out the candles on her cake. She took her first steps in front of the nursery teachers rather than at home with us. And so there was a little tinge of regret. There was a little tinge of, a sense that I'd missed out on something that I didn't want to miss out on again with Charlie. So I was actually quite looking forward to it. I was keen to embrace it.
Okay then. So what would you say were the main challenges for you staying at home and looking after Charlie, first of all?
It's a challenge regardless of the sex of the parents. It's a challenge, I think, for a stay-at-home mum, and it's a particular challenge for a stay-at-home dad because, of course, there aren't that many of us, although, in fact, there are a growing number these days.
So I was saying to you earlier, because I thought, I had this perception in my mind that, maybe men would cope a bit better because they're not as emotional in some cases as women can be, or maybe don't get as stressed, or maybe they don't show that they get as stressed. So I thought maybe men would maybe deal with it a bit better.
To be honest, I'm not sure it makes a big difference. I think there are good parents and bad parents, and I don't think it matters whether those parents are mums or dads. And there are some mums, I'm not including my own partner in this by any means, but there are some mums who are quite happy to sort of take a step back and hand over some of those those day-to-day sort of parenting duties to their male partner. I think the problems come with society's expectation.
Yeah.
When I started just over 3 years ago, nearly 4 years ago, I was literally the only man going to what in many cases is still called the mother and toddler group. So
they need to change that, don't they?
Well, they do. They need to change the name for a start.
We needed to change the name of this show as well because, I got a bit told off about that. We called it Mr. Mummy. So that was a good move, right?
I mean, those kind of things are changing because there are now more stay-at-home dads. Whether that's by choice or not is a moot point. I think there are an awful lot of people who have had no choice through redundancy or career change. They've had to take on the role, and in some cases it's perhaps been reluctantly. But
men are seeing how hard it really is now, aren't they?
It's certainly true. I
more.
can certainly echo what Neil says. I mean, it's the hardest job I've ever done. It really is, bar none. But it's also the most. I mean, the pay is rubbish as well. But it's also the most rewarding. I mean, there are experiences that happen on a day-to-day basis, tiny things, inconsequential things that wouldn't really mean too much to anybody else. But the magic of the moment is there. And if you're there to take part in it and observe it and sort of mentally record it, it's fantastic. It's a privilege, it really is.
Yeah. Normally when you see like a couple that's just had a baby, you tend to kind of ask mummy, how are you? How are you coping? Is everything okay? Do you need anything? And it's like the dad's a bit sidelined, isn't he? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, he can be. And of course, there's a very good reason for asking the mum all those kind of questions. I mean, she's gone through, probably one of the most traumatic physical experiences any woman can ever go through. So there are very good reasons for asking a mum that. But after those first few days and weeks have elapsed, a dad has every reason to get involved and to make the most of that time, as a mum does. Dads should be taking their share of the nighttime feeds if at all possible. They certainly should be changing 50% of the nappies at the very least. I
don't think my dad ever changed my sister's
I don't think my dad did either. No,
but he was there all the time because both my parents worked from home, so they both looked after us. But I remember my dad taking me to school later on, and so he did those kind of things. But my mum did more the sort of work, the manual work.
But what I mean is, physically, we're not that different. Okay, there are certain things like giving birth, like breastfeeding, that men can't do. But apart from that, I mean, our stress responses, hormonal levels rise in men. Neil was talking about crying babies. Male hormones rise in response to the sign of any child in distress, any baby crying, whether it's their own or not. And they don't respond in a particularly measurable way. They, dad might sort of put it down to a bit of irritation and do what Neil did and stick the earplugs in and whatever else. But it's a physical response, and we're sort of emotionally and physically geared up to be parents, every bit as much as mums are.
Okay, so how did the blog come about? Because that's quite popular, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It really came about a bit by accident. I mean, I suppose, to go back to your question about the essential difference between men and women, this is probably the crux of the matter, because whereas a mum, my wife, as a good example, would sit down with a book, they've got a crying baby or they've got a problem with a child, what do? She sits down, my wife had a stack of baby books by the bedside before Charlie was born, and she'd read and marked every one of them. There were post-it notes to sort of indicate where she needed to look if such an occasion should arise, and so on and so forth. What I did, I suppose, is what all blokes would do. When I was at home, when she'd gone to work, there I am, holding the baby, literally. I Googled it. I put a question into Google and inadvertently stumbled upon an enormous sort of network of what was then mummy bloggers, and it still is largely mummy bloggers. But I enjoyed what I was reading, and it was a bit like sort of Neil's forum. There were questions and answers, there were posts about people who'd gone through similar kind of things. There was an opportunity to leave a comment and get a response.
It's just so nice to know that other people are going through the same thing and they're facing the same challenge, because if you think it's only you start to feel like a failure.
Exactly.
But everyone goes through these initial...
But as a result of sort of coming across these sort of myriad blogs and enjoying what I was reading, I thought, well, I'll have a go myself. Yeah. And the rest of the day
and it's
kind
going
of is
really
history.
Well.
Yeah.
And when did the book come about?
Well, the book came about kind of as a result of that, but it also has a bit of a personal twist as well, because when Sally, my eldest daughter, was born, I was given a book by a colleague of mine at school, and it was called Dad's Baby, and it was a very battered paperback book. But it was a bit like the manual that Neil was describing, in that it was very simple, very straightforward. There were no gimmicks, there were no jokes. It wasn't an attempt to be sort of lad's humour. It was straightforward. You're a dad. Here's your baby. This is what you need to know, and here's what you need to do.
You need to have a laugh, don't you, to get through some of the stresses.
Exactly. 10 years later, though, I'd forgotten a lot of that. I'd not given the book back because I'd been expressly told not to. The guy who'd given it to me said, look, I was given it by, such a person, and he, had it given by somebody else, and it was like a baton being handed down through the generations to different dads. And so I'd long ago lost track of it. Couldn't find it on Amazon, discovered it was out of print, and to cut a long story short, decided to write the book myself, sort of rewrite it. So the book that I've written is sort of a replacement for the book that I lost.
So you cover things from even planning a family here,
yeah,
through the pregnancy, the birth.
It takes the whole thing through from beginning, because I think you've got to think about what you're doing before you even do anything about it. You have to be prepared, and you have to go into it with your eyes open. And actually starting a family isn't as straightforward as it is for some people. There are problems, and they're all dealt with in the book as well, and there are solutions, and they're all covered. And of course, once the baby days have gone, Charlie's about to start school in September, and so the book kind of takes you into the first 2 or 3 years of school life as well. So it really is sort of from pre-birth to sort of age 5.
Now, our fathers, well, I suppose it depends on who they are, but I would think that maybe fathers or stay-at-home dads would be maybe stricter than the mums. What's your particular type of parenting?
Gosh. Well, $64,000 question, that, isn't it, really? I think we're pretty even. We're both teachers, so we've both had some training in dealing with individuals. But I don't think it's a question of being one, we don't play nice cop, nasty cop. My wife might let a few things go that I might pick up on, but then again, I think
my dad never used to let things go.
Well, I know, but I think that's partly because I'm around all day, so I can't let Charlie sort of play bongo drums with the tin cans in the kitchen, because it would just drive me demented, whereas she's only there for a couple of hours, so she can let things like that go, perhaps. But I don't think it's that. I mean, all children are different. My 3 are completely different, and you have to respond to them in different ways. You have to have very firm outer boundaries, and there have to be certain things that are non-negotiable, but within that, they have to be set miles and miles apart. And within that, I think all kids need a great deal of freedom to express themselves and to, learn creatively, make their own mistakes.
Yeah, if there's a stay-at-home dad watching now and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm really not coping well, if you had to give them like a couple of your top tips, what would you say to them? Well,
the first would be stick it out, because it's fantastic. It really is. I'm passionate that I think more dads should do it. And the dads that I meet and talk to often start by saying things like, well, goodness, I could never do it. I've not got the patience. I've not got this. I've not got that. I've not got the wherewithal. But by the end of a very short conversation, they're often saying things like, I wish I could do what you're doing, or I wish I could spend more time with my own children. So the first thing, and probably the second thing, and probably the third thing, is just stick it out. There is a way through, but there are no tailor-made solutions. I mean, if there are problems, get help. There's plenty of help online. Talk to people, read books.
Okay, so the main thing is like basically don't keep it to yourself as well.
Absolutely, yeah. We've all been there.
There's no shame in saying, look, I need a bit of help.
I think there is that with parenting. I mean, especially sort of in Britain and in the USA, where we all have to be the perfect parents, and there's no such thing. We all make mistakes, and the point is we learn from them and we get better as a result. Yeah. At least that's what should happen.
Okay. So Tim, as I was telling you earlier, we are going to have a stay-at-home dad coming on after the break that we're about to go to. So he is having a bit of trouble. I think he's doing quite well because he's got a lot on, but maybe you could have a chat with him and see how you and Neil can help him as well. Sure. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so we're looking forward to that. So if you want more information, if you want to get in touch as well, if you have a question at all, you can give us a call on 020 7686 6300. And just to let you know, everything that you see here is also on our website. We put the previous shows up there, so you can take a look there. If you do miss something, you can visit chrissybshow.tv. Everything is there. If you want to Facebook us as well, it's the Chrissy B Show. And also you can tweet at Chrissy B Show. We're going to go to a quick break and then come back with Robert Ashite, who's going to be speaking to us about some of the challenges that he's having at the moment, and also, hopefully we'll be able to give him some advice. So join us after this break. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, where I have 3 wonderful fathers sitting here with me. 2 of them we've spoken to already, and now joining us as well, we have Robert. Hi, Robert.
Good evening.
Welcome to the show. So you're a father.
Yeah.
How old's your daughter you have, right?
My daughter, yes. I have one daughter. She's 3 years old.
Okay, and I know it's quite difficult. So tell me, did you actually expect it to be as hard as it is?
Yeah, it is a challenge, and I had no idea actually of the kind of challenges that I would face, like doing this role as a semi-stay-at-home dad, if you know what I mean. Basically, we had our daughter, and it was like one of the greatest experiences of my life. And one of the things that I always said within myself is that when I have my child, I'm going to really try my best to be in their life. So even when, in the hospital, I was making sure I was there doing my part. Antenatal, child comes out.
Comes out, sorry.
I
love the terminology.
Yeah, I tell you.
It pops out.
But, and what I believe it was Neil was saying about you automatically have that protective instincts for the child. Like every time I would always wake up to see if how she's doing, if she's okay, and then afterwards I really was involved, even though I was working at that early stage. I was really involved in the changing the nappy. Me and my wife agreed within ourselves to like take turns, sometimes she just wouldn't wake up and I'd be like nudging her. But she'd just lie there, so I was like, okay, let's do this. And then it came to a point in my career where I always aspired to have my own business. And if I was to
What was your job before?
I was involved in video production. So I was involved in that for 10 years, radio production and television. So I got a lot of experience in that. So I felt that, the time I had in that equipped me to go it alone. Challenges it was a time of credit crunch, because it was like only just about a year ago. It was a year ago. But I said, no, I'm going to go for it because we can't wait. So I have a child. My wife's working, she does a job, she gets paid pretty well. But I chose to take on the challenge, and when I went for it, obviously I got to work concerning my business, but then obviously...
That was quite a brave thing to do with a young child, because most people say, oh, maybe I should just wait, carry on in my job for a while.
It's true.
It's quite a brave thing to do.
I know. I mean, because the thing is, because I aspire for big things, and when you aspire for big things, you have to face the challenges. You know what I mean? And so with my daughter now, she was going nursery at that time. Like nursery, and it's like, okay, one of the cutbacks we had to make, seeing as I'm at home, the child can stay with me. And
did you know what you were letting yourself in for?
That's the problem right there.
Because you're not just looking after her, you're actually working as well.
Exactly.
So how do you cope with that? Or how do you not cope with that?
Yeah. I mean, because she was 2 years old when I went from employment to take the way of self-employment. She was 2 years old. And, one of the things, because she was already very active, and one of the things I found is because it's creative work, some video production, creativity. You need to think, you need to meditate, you need to sit down and work on your productions and things like that. So the time I found to do that properly, because during the daytime she'd be there. If I tried to work, like put Dora the Explorer on, let her watch that for a while.
I've heard of that, but they all watch it, obviously, because I don't know. Yeah,
Dora the Explorer. No, Dora the Explorer.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like that. So, but the thing is, you want to spend time with her as well. There are times when it's like, I have to focus on this work because I have a deadline. And there's times where you try to do things with her, alphabet, numbers, so she keeps up with the pace, Take her to the park, and there's times when the child just doesn't let you concentrate. You can try to, you can sit there and do the work, that you're trying to do, but they're always,
How did the two of you cope with that?
Oh, badly, really badly.
Yeah.
I mean, I can so recognise what you've just said. I mean, I in the course of writing the book, my book is divided into tiny short paragraphs, and people think it's by design, and people say, oh, that's a really good idea. And it's nothing to do with that at all. It's to do with the fact that the laptop had to be positioned on the back of the sofa, and I had to write a paragraph in between doing all the things that you've just been talking about. You've just got to fit it together somehow. But I mean, that's a terrifically brave decision to start a new business. And then to, when I did it, I wasn't even thinking about writing a book for a year, 2 years, sort of, and it took me that long to establish a routine and to feel comfortable about what I was doing. But you've taken on both those roles simultaneously.
Yes, exactly.
You deserve a medal.
The thing is for me, is like I started my own business, but I became a childminder. So you know what I mean? It was like it's nothing.
Fit the two in one.
So for me, I don't know how. I think it's fantastically brave because, for me, when my daughter was 2 and I had another little girl and a little boy to look after, you know, that was my time. That was what I was doing, you know what I mean? And to try and do something like yourself and write a book and also look after a child, I think you guys are both fantastic. You really are, man. Absolutely. You've got Commando Dad's respect. I say, absolutely. Yeah, mate. You get a medal, mate. Absolutely.
But
so one problem is, one challenge for you is the concentration on your work. So how do you deal with that?
And what I found, the best time for you to have peace and quiet, to concentrate, to create, is during the night. So I would find myself like, so I'd do a power nap from 10 to 11. 10 to 11 power nap.
Do you know power naps? You must do all the time.
Essential.
It's probably you probably got it in your book. I've got it in my book. The power nap.
Do they really work? I think I need to.
They are fantastic.
How long do you?
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Ideally with a bit of caffeine before. So that's just kicking in when you're waking up in 20 minutes.
What I found what I found was if any longer than 20 minutes.
You feel sluggish.
You feel sluggish. So 20 minutes. I set my alarm for 20 minutes because if anything longer and you're like, oh, it's really difficult. But you wake up. And
well, I mean, I would do the power nap say for an hour and a half.
That's not
that's
a night's sleep, mate. Sometimes.
But check this out. So what would happen? I wake up like 12 o'clock, and at 12 o'clock, wife's asleep, child's asleep, and I'd work through the whole night, creating to about say 5, 6 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So then when I'd finish the production, I'm happy with it. Okay, I've seen this, the sun's already coming up. So, set myself, wind down, sleep, eventually sleep. I'm out of it. My wife is getting up to work.
And she gets up and does...
She gets up. Well, the child's still asleep at this time.
Okay.
So she gets up. I'm just getting into the sweetness of the sleep. You know when the sleep starts to feel good? Yeah. And it's actually doing something for you. Then who wakes up at 9?
9. That's quite good though, isn't it? So, yeah. But I mean, what you're describing is what kind of everyone's got to do and fit a routine. I mean, when I gave up work, my wife's a teacher, demanding job. So one of the things that we agreed I was going to do was to run the house so that she could come home from school at 5:30 and have 2 good quality. So she's doing the bath time sort of routine and putting them to bed and reading them the bedtime story. So I found those kind of 2-3 hours quite good to do, or even just to crash out on the sofa actually sometimes. But it's about sort of fitting some sort of domestic routine that works best for both of you, isn't it?
And I think as you said, like to build up a routine. But the things with this kind of work is that so like she's jumping up. Daddy, you okay? Daddy. Okay, 9 o'clock. But over time, that was pretty good. That was because she has a routine. She wakes up at 9. She's good for that. She'll sleep like a good time. She won't wake up in the night to cry or anything. She's never done that. But she would wake up. But then afterwards, she was seeing her daddy sleeping. So she'll sit down next to me quietly. Wait for let daddy have his little few moments of sleep.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
she does that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, then she'll say, Daddy, I want breakfast. So that's about 10. That's when she can't wait anymore. And so then after I get up, I know the drill, and I work it out. But then the next thing comes when, for example, you have meetings. Because you have meetings with people. I have my business advisor. I have meetings with clients, we have to arrange things. So obviously I've got this child to take care of. So luckily, fortunately, I have family that's close by. So when I plan the meeting, which we usually try to be in the morning, I have to arrange things so I can have her somewhere in the morning. And and when her uncle's like, he's there sleeping in bed and we're ringing on the bell like, take the child, it can bring a little conflict, to the final appointment I need to attend. So, I kind of work my way around it, using family. If I didn't have close family around me, it'd be very, very difficult,
What would you say the main issues are that maybe Tim and Neil could give you a bit of advice on? What do you think? Do you have any questions for them?
The main issues, I was thinking, because obviously she's 3 now, so I've already gone past the stages of milk and nappy changing, which wasn't really a big problem. But I think it could be a thing of, I think managing her time.
Yeah. I think what do you describe a different? So she's having breakfast at 10. Are you then sort of hands-on with her until mum comes home in the evening?
So
every minute of the day?
Does she still nap, by the way?
Yeah, she does.
Does she not?
Sometimes she does. It depends how active she is.
Yeah.
So she's a resistant one, this one. So she can be there like, you know, 3 o'clock nap time, she's just there.
Yeah.
You know, just
So you trade that for the full night's sleep.
That's
Yeah,
right,
yeah, absolutely,
exactly.
yeah.
And she's up for it like a light. But yeah, I think that's it. Just I need to establish a her time. You know? Like, you know, that's when we went to Spain and, you know, we had a really good time and everything. But obviously when you come back home, you know, it's tricky. It's tricky to actually help to educate her because like we used to go to those like classes where the like they have these things, you know, where kids go and they read storybooks to them, which was really good. It was a really good routine. Yeah. But I couldn't stick to that routine.
No. I think there's a danger with parents when you get to, you know, that level, that stage of infancy, that you think you've got to be with them all the time, reading to them, doing something, teaching them something, or even just narrating, you know, giving them a commentary on what it is they're doing. I think it is quite important. It's difficult, but it's quite important, I feel anyway, to stand back, you know, and just observe or even read a book.
How much time should you be spending then with
Well,
children?
it should be about
What's that
50-50, but I think there's a danger. You know, I take Charlie and Eloise to the park, and there are people who won't let their children go anywhere without being absolutely micromanaged. They micromanage every second of their experience, and I think that's a dangerous extreme because you want a child who can cope with boredom for a start. You want a child who can show some initiative and be creative, and you can't teach those things by doing them and leading them by the hand. They've got to be given the freedom to discover those kind of things for themselves within themselves.
Have you got any? Have you had a look around your area for groups like? Play groups, but also as well. I used to have a group in Wednesbury where I used to be a childminder. But there was a dads group which was fantastic, and maybe to do a little bit of searching around on the internet to see if there's groups. No, I mean like mine was specifically for dads. You know what I mean? It was dads and male carers to come, and that was great to think because I mean you found it yourself that you were. Many times when you go to a child, a play group, you are the only dad. As you say, it's changing now. It is changing, but having a dad's play group is really, really good.
I'm lucky as well. I mean, there is one in the town where I live as well. So I would think if they reach rural South Lincolnshire, there's got to be one.
Really do have a look because it's you know, and because. You know, you get your dad perspective on it. You know what I mean? And sometimes it can be a little bit alienating or a little bit scary for a dad going into a busy play group where there's 20, 30 mums.
Because actually, I went to one of those. Because they used to have it on Wednesdays. I'm not even about alienating. Definitely, because I was there. You know, I had Kaya there, and the rest are just mums. The rest are just mums. And
but I mean, the thing is, it goes back to the question that you were asking me earlier. We've got to realise as dads, it can be as alienating for the mums. You know, you read some of the blog posts about toddler groups, and the politics of where you sit and who you talk to and when you are spoken to. All this kind of thing.
Just a question about
it's as bad for the mums as it is for the dads, if not worse.
The mums as well. Do your wives' partners agree with the way your parenting skills? Is that
I mean, well, yes, it's got to be, hasn't it?
I think,
how do you make your compromise?
I think when one of the things that you were saying to me about the use you mentioned about discipline and being strict and stuff, and I think you've got to be on the same page when it comes to parenting. You know what I mean? You've got your certain way of doing things. You know what I mean? As a mum and as a dad. But fundamentally, you've got to be on the same page. You know what I mean? Because that can cause a bit of friction.
Because that'll make things a lot easier if at least you do agree on the
I think
because
you've
that's
got
already a big hassle.
It can be. I mean, I remember having a conversation with a dad at the playgroup a few weeks ago, and he was saying, "You're lucky because your wife." Clearly, from what I was saying about me and my wife, we agree with the way that we bring up our children. He went, whereas me and my wife don't agree. And he went, and it's a hard thing. You know, it does
maybe that's
a lot of friction.
Sorry, Robert, we have run out of time. Unfortunately, I want to talk more about maybe that is actually the first step before anything else is to actually sit down, even if you don't have any children yet, but you're planning to have kids, at least find out beforehand what your parenting methods will be, because that's going to be a big headache out the way. Because if you start having children and you haven't agreed on how you're going to bring them up or who's going to stay at home to look after them, you can end up being it could be a very stressful situation, couldn't it?
Definitely.
But thankfully you've all got that under control. You all agreed with your partner and everything.
Yes,
so
you work out life. Life's a great teacher.
Exactly.
And like you said, stick to it.
Learn from your mistakes as well.
And you're not alone.
You're not alone.
Shall I sing? sing now.
I can back you up.
None of them. Yes, okay. So you are. It's true. You're not alone. So if you are a stay-at-home mum or dad, so you know you can hear everyone has difficulties. Everyone goes through the challenges. Just because you're having trouble, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's just a normal part of parenting because it doesn't come with a. You know, you don't just know everything automatically. It's a learning process as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for sharing your advice.
Pleasure.
And your life stories as well. And we will be back again on Wednesday. So Wednesday's show is all about memory. So if you find yourself forgetting things all the time, we're going to be having someone coming on who's a memory expert, and he's going to be teaching us how we can actually improve our memory and actually remember things as well. So that's going to be on Wednesday's show. So that's all we've got time for today. So thank you to my guests and thank you to you for watching, and let's leave you with this YouTube funny video.
Да, мне похеру. Dear God!
I just shot myself.